Alana Rivera's story began not in a high-rise office or a prestigious university, but in a cramped, bustling neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. The streets were alive with the sounds of car horns, children's laughter, and the distant hum of trains rumbling along the elevated tracks. It was a world where dreams often felt like distant stars visible, but impossibly far away. But even as a young girl, Alana had eyes fixed firmly on the sky. Her parents, first-generation Mexican immigrants, worked long hours in factories and restaurants, struggling to make ends meet. They believed deeply in education as the only way out of poverty, and from the moment Alana learned to read, their hopes were pinned on her. Every report card, every test score was a report card on their sacrifice. Alana felt the weight of their expectations, like a constant pressure in her chest. But she didn't mind. She was determined to make them proud. Alana's fascination with buildings began at a tender age. When other children played with dolls or video games, she collected scraps of paper and sketched houses, bridges, and towers. Her room was filled with makeshift models constructed from cardboard, sticks, and glue. She dreamed of the day she'd design the city skyline herself, imagining herself standing atop a glass skyscraper she'd created, looking out over the horizon. School was her proving ground. Despite the challenges of underfunded schools and overcrowded classrooms, Alana excelled. Teachers marveled at her sharp mind and relentless curiosity. She devoured math and science textbooks, often staying after class to ask questions or complete extra assignments. She set her sights on scholarships to prestigious universities, knowing they were her ticket to the world beyond her neighborhood. But the path was anything but smooth. At school, Alana wasn't just battling textbooks and exams, she was battling bias. Some teachers saw her as a statistic rather than a student. "You'll never make it to engineering school," one math teacher told her bluntly. "People like you don't build skyscrapers." The words stung, but she buried the hurt and kept working harder. The sneers from classmates were worse. Some whispered behind her back, others made jokes loud enough to hear in the hallway. Why bother? She'll fail like the rest of us. Her closest friends urged her to give up the impossible dream, telling her to aim for easier goals jobs. Trade school, something realistic. But Alana's resolve only hardened. She wanted to prove them all wrong. Then came the day that nearly broke her. It was her senior year. Alana had studied for months for a national scholarship, exam that could cover her tuition and open doors she could barely imagine. The exam was held in a school auditorium packed with students from all over the city. She remembered sitting in her seat, heart pounding, trying to block out the noise and focus on the questions. After the exam, a dark cloud fell over her. A teacher accused Alana of cheating, claiming she had been caught looking at another student's paper. The accusation spread quickly. The school principal called her in for a meeting, and despite her protests of innocence, Alana was suspended pending investigation. The news hit her family hard. Her mother cried. Her father's jaw tightened in frustration. Rumors flew through the school corridors. She cheated to get ahead. She's not smart. She's just lucky. The accusations felt like a slap across the face after years of hard work. But the worst blow was the official verdict: expulsion. Without the scholarship, and now without a diploma, Alana's future felt like it was crumbling beneath her feet. She sat alone in her bedroom that night, the walls closing in. The neighborhood she'd always known now seemed suffocating, the voices of doubt louder than ever. "You're not good enough," they whispered. "You don't belong." But inside her, a different voice fought back. Alana refused to let this be her end. With no diploma, no college, and no safety net, she faced a future that seemed bleak and uncertain. But something inside her burned brighter than despair, a fierce determination to climb back up, no matter how steep the path, no matter how many times she had been pushed down. She found a job as a janitor in one of the downtown office buildings. The pay was low, the hours long, and the work exhausting, but it was honest. During the day, she wore a uniform and pushed a mop through sterile corridors. At night, she returned to her aunt's crowded basement apartment, where she slept on a worn-out mattress. Many would have given up there. Many would have accepted that this was her fate. But Alana was not like many. When the building's engineers left their designs on desks or in meeting rooms, she studied them quietly. On breaks, she browsed online tutorials, teaching herself how to use design software on the outdated computers in the public library. Every blueprint she saw was a building block in her invisible climb. Her family worried. "Why don't you just get a real job?" her aunt asked, concerned for her health. But Alana only smiled. "I'm not done yet," she said. Night after night, she pored over textbooks she borrowed from the library, often falling asleep with her head on the pages. The world outside still doubted her, still laughed at the girl pushed down, but inside her heart, she was building something new, a future no one could steal. In the neighborhood, whispers continued. People said she was lucky to have a roof over her head, that she should be grateful for any job. But Alana was climbing without ropes, without ladders, using only grit, intelligence, and sheer will. No one knew her secret yet, but the fire inside her was growing. The push that knocked her down had only made her stronger. She was far from finished. The basement apartment was cramped, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb hanging from the low ceiling. It smelled faintly of damp concrete and old laundry. It wasn't the kind of place most teenagers would dream of living in, but for Alana Rivera, it was home, a place to regroup and rebuild after the storm that had swept her life off course. Her Aunt Maria, a kind but stern woman who had raised her since childhood, had made room for Alana when the family feared she might have nowhere else to turn. Maria often said, "You've got the fire, Nina. Just don't let it burn out." Alana took those words to heart every day as she settled into her new reality. Working nights as a janitor at a downtown office building, Alana found herself in a world that was both alien and fascinating. The towering skyscrapers, glass facades, and endless cubicles, filled with businessmen and women, felt like an entirely different planet from the worn streets of her neighborhood. At times, it was easy to feel invisible, a ghost moving through the polished halls. But that invisibility was her secret weapon. One night, while pushing a mop down a long hallway, she overheard voices coming from a conference room. Curious, she peered inside and saw a group of engineers discussing plans and designs on a large screen. Blueprints of bridges, housing developments, and skyscrapers filled the display. The language was technical, filled with jargon that made her heart race with excitement and nerves. Her hands tightened around the mop handle as she listened carefully. For years, school had felt like a battleground. Now, in these quiet after-hours moments, Alana found a different kind of classroom, one she had chosen herself. She made it her mission to learn everything she could about engineering, not through textbooks alone, but by watching professionals work, dissecting their conversations, and piecing together the meaning of unfamiliar terms. She borrowed discarded engineering textbooks from the local library, poring over them late into the night. She taught herself to use CAD software on outdated library computers, spending hours modeling simple structures, practicing until her fingers ached and her eyes blurred. Each line drawn, each calculation completed, was a step back up from the depths of despair. Alana's nights in the basement were often lonely, punctuated only by the hum of the city outside. The thin walls barely muffled the sounds of her aunt's television or the occasional laughter from the neighbors above. Despite the small space, Alana created a corner of hope for herself, a cluttered desk covered in blueprints, sketches and notes where her dreams took shape. Her family worried about her. Her mother called often, her voice trembling with concern and confusion. "Why aren't you going to school? Why are you working such hard jobs?" they asked. But Alana always gave the same answer. "I'm learning. I'm building my future." Her Aunt Maria, while supportive, also urged caution. "It's not easy out there, Nina. Don't let your dreams drown in these dark nights." But Alana refused to be dimmed. As months passed, she realized that her passion for engineering was not just about buildings. It was about something bigger. She thought about the crumbling homes in her neighborhood, the flood-prone streets, the families struggling to find shelter that could withstand the harsh Chicago winters. She wanted to build solutions, structures that could protect people like her own family. One chilly winter night, after finishing her shift, Alana slipped into the crowded conference room, where the engineers had met weeks before. The door was unlocked, and inside she found blueprints and sketches scattered across tables. Her heart pounded as she carefully studied the drawings, tracing lines with her finger, imagining the weight of beams and the strength of foundations. She was no longer a janitor cleaning floors. She was a student of structure, a silent apprentice. Her classmates from high school still mocked her online. A message flashed across her phone. "Waitress?" More like a joke. But Alana ignored the sting. She had stopped seeking their approval long ago. Her climb was different, quiet, unseen, relentless. Every day she rose before dawn to work. Every night she studied and designed. Her skin grew rough from manual labor, but her mind sharpened with every new skill. She created small-scale models from scrap materials, testing ideas late into the night. Her Aunt Maria watched with a mixture of pride and concern. "You're chasing a dream through a storm," she said once. "Just make sure you don't get lost." Alana smiled, clutching a blueprint to her chest. "I'm not lost. I'm finding my way." One day, she found a flyer pinned to a bulletin board at the library, a free seminar on sustainable architecture hosted by a local university. The event was open to the public, and she made up her mind to attend. No matter what, she would learn. On the day of the seminar, Alana wore her only clean shirt and nervously entered the university lecture hall. Surrounded by students in neat uniforms and expensive laptops, she felt like an outsider. But as the speaker detailed innovative housing solutions designed to combat climate change and urban poverty, Alana's eyes shone with recognition. This was her world, the world she wanted to belong to. After the seminar, she introduced herself to one of the professors, explaining her background and passion. To her surprise, the professor smiled warmly. "You've got the spirit, Alana. Keep coming to these sessions. There's always room for someone with heart and drive." It was the encouragement she needed. Returning to her basement that night, Alana felt a surge of hope. The walls, once closing in, now seemed to expand with possibility. She was no longer just a girl pushed down by circumstance. She was a woman climbing, building her future with every step. Though she had no diploma, no degree, no ropes to pull herself up, Alana was rising. And she wouldn't stop. Despite the spark of hope Alana had kindled in the basement, the world outside remained harsh and unforgiving. The path ahead was littered with obstacles, and every step she took upward was met with resistance. Alana had made up her mind. She would enroll in community college to take the foundational courses she needed to advance toward engineering. It was her chance to prove her worth and regain the academic foothold she'd lost after the false accusation. But reality was not kind. Her first application was met with polite but firm rejection. The admissions counselor, after glancing at her incomplete high school record and gaps in education, suggested she consider vocational training instead. Trade school might be a better fit, the counselor said, her tone patronizing. "You know, plumbing, electrical work. Practical skills." Alana felt the sting of those words deeply. Practical skills? She wanted to build bridges, not fix leaks. But she refused to let their narrow views define her. Determined, she reapplied to several community colleges, only to be met with similar dismissals. The academic doors she had dreamed of opening were firmly shut, and every rejection felt like another shove downward. Her resume, thin on formal qualifications, but rich with determination, yielded no callbacks for internships. Prospective employers, when they deigned to reply at all, dismissed her for lack of experience or credentials. One employer even laughed aloud upon reading her cover letter, sarcastically suggesting she might try again after a few years of real work. In the digital world, the cruelty was even sharper. Former classmates and acquaintances from high school flooded social media with taunts. Comments like, "Still just a waitress," and "Dreams don't pay bills," lit up threads where her name was mentioned. The ridicule was relentless, a reminder of the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be. For many, this would have been the breaking point. But Alana had learned a hard lesson early on. Laughter from others was often the sound of fear, fear of someone climbing higher than they expected. She refused to be a cautionary tale. Her days remained grueling. She worked long shifts cleaning restaurants and offices, returning to her basement room exhausted and bruised by the world's indifference. But every spare moment was devoted to learning. She downloaded free tutorials, studied engineering principles online, and practiced drawing detailed designs on scraps of paper. Alana's hands grew rough and calloused, her skin toughened by manual labor, but her mind sharpened. The more people told her she couldn't climb, the more she dug in her heels. She realized that she was climbing not by using the ropes the world offered, but by finding holds no one else saw. A hidden ledge, a narrow crack, a small ledge carved out by sheer will. One evening, after a particularly humiliating rejection from an internship program, Alana sat alone in the dim light of the library. Her phone buzzed with messages mocking her ambitions. For a moment, doubt crept in like a shadow. But then, as she stared at the blueprints she had drawn that day, something inside her roared back. "Why are you still here?" she whispered to herself. "Because I have to be. Because I have to build what no one else will." She began to reach out to online communities, groups of engineers, students and hobbyists who welcomed beginners with open arms. They shared advice, tutorials, and encouragement. She uploaded her sketches and CAD models, asking for feedback. Slowly, a new network of support began to form, and Alana felt the first flicker of belonging in a world that had once shut her out. Her passion became a quiet rebellion against the status quo. Where others saw a janitor, she saw a student. Where others saw a dropout, she saw a future engineer. The climb was steep, the air thin, but Alana's grip never faltered. Yet the social isolation was palpable. Friends from her old neighborhood began to drift away, unable to understand her relentless focus on an elusive dream. Invitations stopped coming. Conversations turned cold. "I don't know why you're still chasing that," one childhood friend said bitterly. "You should just settle for what you've got." But Alana's eyes were fixed on horizons far beyond their small world. Then came the day she encountered a harsh reality she hadn't expected: systemic barriers. Applying for financial aid proved to be a labyrinth of paperwork and bureaucracy. Without a diploma, she was ineligible for many scholarships and grants. She tried to explain her situation in person, but was met with skepticism. "You don't fit our requirements," a counselor said. "You need official transcripts." The frustration was crushing. Still, Alana refused to quit. She took on extra shifts at work, saving every dollar she could. She bought second-hand textbooks and enrolled in online courses whenever possible, piecing together her education one thread at a time. Her resilience was not unnoticed. One evening, While attending a local meet for aspiring engineers, she caught the attention of a volunteer mentor named Carlos. Carlos had come from a similar background and knew the struggles firsthand. "I see you working twice as hard as anyone here," he told her. "You've got the talent and the heart. Don't let their words hold you down." Carlos helped her polish her resume, write stronger cover letters, and navigate the complex world of internships and scholarships. He encouraged her to apply for a national innovation competition focused on sustainable housing, a chance to showcase her designs and ideas on a bigger stage. Alana hesitated. The thought of putting herself out there, exposing her work and her story, was terrifying. What if she failed? What if they laughed again? But Carlos was insistent. "You've already climbed without ropes. Now it's time to show the world." Summoning her courage, Alana submitted her design anonymously. The project was a sustainable housing model, created with limited resources, but inspired by real needs in her community. Affordable, resilient, and environmentally conscious. Weeks later, the email arrived. Her design had been shortlisted. The news spread quickly within her circle. For the first time, her name appeared in discussions not as a joke, but as a finalist in a national competition. The reaction was mixed. Some were stunned, others skeptical. When the finalists were announced publicly, and it was revealed that a waitress from Chicago's South Side was among them, there was laughter, disbelief that someone so unqualified had made it this far. But Alana was ready. At the award ceremony, standing on the stage beneath bright lights, she told her story, not as a victim, but as a fighter. Her voice was steady as she spoke of the push that knocked her down and the climb she had begun without ropes. The audience sat in stunned silence. The laughter faded. In that moment, Alana Rivera was no longer the girl they laughed at. She was the girl who climbed back, and no one would forget it. The moment Alana Rivera received the email telling her she had been shortlisted for the National Innovation Contest, her heart raced with a mix of excitement and disbelief. This was a door she never expected to open. A waitress, a janitor, a high school dropout was about to stand, shoulder to shoulder with aspiring engineers from some of the country's most prestigious schools. It felt surreal. For years, Alana had been climbing without ropes, scaling walls that no one else could see. Now, the climb was about to become visible to the world. Her design, a model for sustainable, affordable housing aimed at combating urban displacement and climate vulnerability, was a reflection of her life, born from struggle, built on hope, and designed for resilience. It was a concept that combined simple materials, smart architecture, and community input, all wrapped in innovative, environmentally friendly principles. Alana had submitted the proposal anonymously, fearing the backlash if her background was revealed. The competition was fierce, and the judges were renowned engineers, architects, and innovators. Her design was chosen not because of her name, but because of its merit. Then came the revelation. Alana Rivera was the creator. At the preliminary judges' meeting, the room buzzed with surprise. Whispers circulated. A janitor? A dropout? Skepticism shadowed the awe. Yet the work was undeniable. Alana was invited to present at the national finals in Washington, D.C., an opportunity she embraced with a mix of pride and nerves. It was a chance to prove not only her skill, but the truth that grit and talent could come from unexpected places. In the weeks leading up to the event, Alana worked harder than ever. She polished her presentation, rehearsed her speech, and sought advice from Carlos, her mentor. Together, they refined her message. It wasn't just about buildings or blueprints, but about breaking barriers and creating opportunities for those overlooked by society. The day of the finals arrived. Alana stood backstage at the grand auditorium, her palms sweating beneath the spotlight's heat. The audience was filled with industry leaders, media personnel, and fellow contestants clad in designer suits and polished shoes. It was intimidating, but Alana drew strength from the years of struggle that had brought her here. When it was her turn, she stepped onto the stage, the room quieting instantly. Her voice, clear and confident, carried through the space as she explained her vision. This project is more than just a design. It's a blueprint for communities like mine, places where people have been forgotten, where homes are fragile, and hope is fragile too. I believe architecture can be a force for change, not just for the wealthy, but for everyone. As she detailed her sustainable materials, modular construction techniques, and community-focused approach, faces in the crowd shifted from skeptical to attentive. Questions followed, and Alana answered with knowledge that reflected countless hours of self-study and practical experience. The judges deliberated, and when the winner was announced, Alana's name echoed through the auditorium. She hadn't won the grand prize. The victory went to a well-known university team, but she had earned a special commendation for innovation and community impact. More importantly, she had captured the hearts of the audience. News outlets picked up her story. The janitor who became a national finalist, the dropout who dared to dream, the young woman who climbed without ropes and stunned the world. Social media exploded with support. Hashtags like #AlanaClimbs and #RopeFreeRise trended as people rallied behind her story of resilience. Invitations to speak at conferences and universities poured in. Suddenly, Alana was no longer invisible. She was a rising star in a field that had once seemed impenetrable. But the climb was just beginning. The attention brought new challenges. Established engineers questioned her credentials openly. Some critics called her a one-hit wonder. Others accused her of riding a wave of sympathy rather than merit. Articles debated whether someone without formal education could truly belong in professional circles. Alana met these doubts head-on. She knew her knowledge came from sweat and study, not certificates. Every time she faced a sneer or a condescending remark, she saw it as another rock to grip tighter. Refusing to rest on her laurels, she launched a series of free online workshops teaching sustainable design principles to young people in underserved communities. Using social media platforms and open-source tools, she created a grassroots movement that empowered others like her to climb without ropes. Her community design collective grew quickly, a network of aspiring engineers, architects, and activists who believed in building futures from the ground up. Alana's vision was no longer solitary. It was shared. Meanwhile, offers from companies and nonprofits began to trickle in: internships, consulting gigs, even a few full-time job proposals. But each came with strings attached. Some wanted her to drop her community programs. Others insisted she tone down her activist message to fit corporate molds. Alana faced a choice: follow a safer, more conventional path, or forge ahead on her own terms. She chose the latter. Starting with her savings and small grants, she founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to sustainable infrastructure projects in marginalized neighborhoods. Her first projects focused on rebuilding homes damaged by flooding and harsh winters, the very issues she had dreamed of solving in the basement. The work was grueling and the budget tight, but every completed project was a victory, a tangible proof that her climb was not just personal, but collective. Her nonprofit attracted volunteers and partners, many inspired by her story. They came from diverse backgrounds: students, professionals, community leaders, all united by a shared purpose. As the years passed, Alana's influence expanded. She was invited to speak at conferences worldwide, her TED Talk on climbing without ropes becoming a viral sensation. Universities that had once rejected her reached out with offers to collaborate on research and development projects. Through it all, Alana remained grounded. She returned often to her old neighborhood, where she mentored young girls and boys, telling them, "You don't need ropes to climb. You need courage, creativity, and community." One afternoon, she visited the very high school that had expelled her. Standing before a packed auditorium, she shared her journey, the push that knocked her down, the climb that brought her back. The students listened in silence, some skeptical, others inspired. Afterwards, a group of girls approached her, eyes wide with hope. "You make me believe I can do this," one whispered. Alana smiled, remembering her own nights in the basement. "Yes, you can. And you will." The ascent had begun not with ropes, but with a fierce, unbreakable will. And Alana Rivera was leading the way. The path Alana had chosen was steep and winding. Each step she took toward her dreams was met with new challenges, some expected, others devastating. But if life had taught her anything, it was that resilience was built in the fire of hardship, and the climb was never easy for those without ropes. After launching her nonprofit, Build Back, dedicated to sustainable infrastructure and affordable housing, Alana quickly realized that passion alone wasn't enough. The harsh realities of fundraising, politics, and bureaucracy threatened to slow her momentum. But giving up wasn't an option. She spent countless nights writing grant proposals, pitching ideas to potential donors, and negotiating with city officials. Often, she was the youngest, least credentialed person in the room. At times, she was dismissed as naive or idealistic, a passionate dreamer with no practical experience. But she persisted. The first major project for Build Back was a pilot housing redevelopment in her old neighborhood, an area battered by years of neglect, floods, and economic decline. Alana's design called for modular homes using recycled materials and renewable energy, providing affordable, durable shelter that could withstand harsh weather. She and her small team faced skepticism at every turn. The city council questioned the feasibility of the project. Developers wanted to push luxury apartments instead. Neighbors worried about gentrification, fearing displacement rather than help. Yet Alana refused to compromise the core mission. "We're building for the people who live here," she told anyone who would listen. Not for profit, not for show. For families, friends, neighbors, for all of us. Her team began work with limited funds, salvaging materials, recruiting volunteers, and working long hours. The basement where Alana once lived became a hub of activity. Plans spread across tables, blueprints pinned to walls, laptops buzzing with calculations. Progress was slow but visible. One bitterly cold December night, as volunteers huddled to insulate a nearly finished home, disaster struck. A fire broke out in a nearby abandoned building, rapidly spreading toward the construction site. The flames illuminated the neighborhood sky like an angry beast, threatening everything they had built. Chaos erupted. Volunteers scrambled to extinguish the fire and save materials, but the damage was severe. Weeks of work went up in smoke. Alana stood frozen for a moment, watching the fire consume their labor. The laughter of skeptics echoed in her mind. "She'll never make it. Why bother?" But the fire ignited something else, a fierce determination. The very next day, Alana was back on site, rallying her team. "We rebuild," she declared. "We don't let this stop us." Word of the fire spread through the community. Some neighbors came forward with donations. Others offered their skills and time. The tragedy, instead of breaking them, forged new bonds. In the aftermath, Alana organized a community meeting in the local church basement. Dozens of residents packed the room, voices rising with anger, fear, and hope. "This is our home," Alana told them. "We have to fight for it, together." Her sincerity and grit won over many skeptics. Soon, Build Back became a beacon of hope, a grassroots effort to reclaim and rebuild the neighborhood from the ground up. But the fire was just the first test. Months later, A sudden funding cut threatened to halt the entire project. A major grant was pulled due to political pressure from real estate interests. Alana was devastated, but refused to give up. She turned to crowdfunding and social media, sharing raw videos of the community's struggles and hopes. Her authenticity resonated, and donations began to pour in from across the country. Still, every success came with new obstacles. One day, a local newspaper published a scathing editorial accusing Alana of reckless spending and mismanagement. The article questioned her qualifications and insinuated corruption. The backlash was painful. Calls and emails poured in, some supportive, many harsh. Alana felt the weight of scrutiny like never before. In her darkest moments, she considered walking away. The climb seemed endless, the world unkind. But then, she remembered the push that knocked her down years ago, the moment she was thrown off the cliff, laughed at as she fell, and how she climbed back. She held a press conference to address the allegations, presenting transparent financial records and answering tough questions openly. Her honesty and courage won the respect of many, silencing critics and strengthening support. The journey was far from over, but Alana's climb had taken on new meaning. It was no longer just about her success, but about a movement, a testament to perseverance, community, and belief in a better future. As the pilot homes neared completion, Alana stood on the freshly poured concrete porch of the first house, looking out over the neighborhood she loved. Children played nearby, laughter echoing down cracked sidewalks. Families moved into the new homes, faces alight with relief and hope. The climb without ropes was painful and unpredictable, but every step forward was a victory. Alana Rivera had faced fire, doubt, and loss, and she was still climbing. The success of the pilot housing project marked a pivotal moment for Alana Rivera and Build Back. The neighborhood that once seemed destined for decay now shimmered with new life. Families moved into homes designed not just to shelter, but to empower, with solar panels on the roofs and community gardens blooming where vacant lots had once stood. But for Alana, the climb was far from over. She knew that the true summit wasn't just about rebuilding a single block. It was about reshaping the systems that had long left communities like hers behind. The fire, the funding battles, and the public scrutiny had hardened her resolve. Each hardship became a rung on the ladder she was determined to climb higher. With the pilot's success as proof of concept, Alana turned her sights on scaling up. She envisioned a network of sustainable housing projects across multiple cities, each adapted to local needs, but rooted in community empowerment. To do this, she needed more resources, more allies, and more influence. First, she sought partnerships with universities and research institutions. The same schools that once dismissed her now saw value in collaborating with Build Back. Students and professors joined forces with Alana, contributing cutting-edge research, technical expertise, and enthusiastic manpower. The partnerships weren't always easy to maintain. Some academics struggled to understand the urgency of community-driven projects, preferring theoretical work to on-the-ground action. Alana's pragmatic approach sometimes clashed with their idealism, but she bridged gaps by focusing on shared goals. She also reached out to policymakers. Armed with data from Build Back's pilot, Alana testified at city council hearings and state legislative sessions, advocating for affordable housing reforms and sustainable urban development. Her speeches were passionate and personal. "I stand here not as an expert, but as someone who has lived the consequences of neglect," she told lawmakers. "We must build with purpose, with people at the center, not just profit." Her voice resonated, earning her both allies and opponents in political arenas. Real estate lobbyists pushed back hard, but public support for her cause grew steadily. Meanwhile, Alana expanded Build Back's team. She recruited engineers, architects, community organizers, and young activists, many inspired by her story. Together, they developed innovative programs for job training, youth mentorship, and environmental education, all integrated with housing projects. One of the most transformative initiatives was a youth apprenticeship program that gave local teens hands-on experience in construction, design, and project management. Alana knew that true change required lifting others as she climbed. She also launched an annual conference, Climbing Without Ropes, gathering experts and advocates to share ideas and forge new partnerships. The event became a vibrant hub for innovation in sustainable community development. Despite these achievements, the climb remained steep. Scaling operations brought administrative headaches and financial risks. Donors were sometimes hesitant to commit long-term funding. Tensions arose within the team, with passionate individuals debating strategy and priorities. One evening, after a particularly fraught board meeting, Alana retreated to the quiet of her basement office. The weight of responsibility pressed down, and doubts whispered in her ear. Could she carry the movement forward? Was the dream too big? Then, she glanced at a faded photograph taped to the wall, a snapshot from years ago, of herself in that tiny basement, eyes wide with determination. She smiled. The push that knocked her down had forged something unbreakable. The climb had been brutal, but it had made her strong. Outside, the city hummed with life. Lights twinkled in windows, cars moved steadily through streets, and the neighborhood she loved breathed hope. Alana returned to her team with renewed energy. Together, they mapped out ambitious goals, securing multi-year grants, launching new pilot projects in neighboring cities, and expanding educational programs. She also focused on storytelling, sharing Build Back's successes and challenges through videos, blogs, and social media. She built a narrative of resilience that inspired thousands. One story that touched many was of a young apprentice named Malik, a high school dropout who, under Alana's mentorship, discovered a passion for engineering. Malik's transformation, from skepticism to purpose, became a symbol of what Build Back could achieve. As the movement gained momentum, Alana faced one of her greatest tests yet, an offer from a major tech corporation to acquire Build Back. The company promised funding, resources, and global reach, but at a cost. They wanted control over the organization's mission and messaging, pushing for commercialization over community focus. The offer sparked intense debate within the team and her supporters. Some argued the acquisition could accelerate impact. Others feared losing Build Back's soul. For Alana, it was a defining moment. She weighed the promise of rapid growth against the risk of compromising everything she had fought for. After sleepless nights and countless discussions, she declined the offer. "We climb on our own terms," she told her team. "Our mission isn't for sale." The decision won respect, but also invited new challenges. Without the corporation's resources, growth slowed. Competitors and detractors seized the moment to question Build Back's viability. Yet Alana stood firm. Her climb was never about shortcuts or easy paths. It was about the climb itself, the struggle, the community, the change. As Build Back celebrated its 5th anniversary, Alana stood before a crowd at the Climbing Without Ropes conference. She spoke of the journey, the falls, the fire, the victories, and the summit still ahead. "The climb is never over," she said, "but every step brings us closer. Together we rise." The applause was thunderous. Alana Rivera had transformed from a girl pushed off a cliff to a leader inspiring a movement. Her story was no longer just about survival. It was about revolution. And the summit was finally in sight. From the outside, Alana Rivera's ascent seemed improbable, almost impossible. The girl they had laughed at, the dropout pushed aside and told to settle for less, had clawed her way back up a steep, rocky cliff without the safety of ropes or support. And now, Her climb was a beacon. But the world that once mocked her had not forgotten. Despite her growing influence and undeniable success, Alana found that old voices still echoed with derision and disbelief. The same people who dismissed her as a waitress or a dropout now watched her with a mixture of skepticism and thinly veiled envy. It was during a major urban development conference in New York City that the echoes became deafening. Alana had been invited as a keynote speaker, a rare honor. The auditorium was filled with architects, engineers, policymakers, and investors, many from elite institutions. The air buzzed with anticipation, but beneath it, a current of condescension simmered. As Alana took the stage, her heart pounded, but her voice rang clear and unwavering. She began by recounting her journey from the basement where she had first dreamed to the pilot projects, the fires, and the betrayals. She spoke not with bitterness, but with fierce clarity. They laughed when I was pushed down, when I fell without ropes. But here I stand, climbing back. Not because I was given a chance, but because I took it. Her words challenged the room. After the speech, during a networking session, Alana overheard whispers from some attendees. How did she even get here? One scoffed. Must be a fluke. Others muttered about her lack of formal education, insinuating she didn't belong. The laughter, quiet but unmistakable, was a familiar poison. Alana smiled inwardly. The laughter was a sign that she had disrupted the comfortable narratives that kept people like her out. Then came the moment that would become legend. As part of the conference, an interactive demonstration was set up, a simulated urban climb challenge. Participants were to ascend a towering climbing wall, equipped with safety ropes and harnesses. The challenge was designed to symbolize the obstacles faced by urban planners and builders. Alana was invited to try. She accepted. The crowd watched as she approached the wall. But instead of accepting the harness and ropes, she surprised everyone by shaking her head and stepping up without any safety gear. A hush fell over the room. The wall was high and daunting, the grips small and uneven. Alana's fingers clenched tight, her feet searching for holds. She moved deliberately, her entire body focused, muscles straining. People gasped as she climbed higher. No ropes to catch her if she fell. At the top, she paused, looking out over the crowd with steady eyes. Then, with a steady, confident descent, still without ropes, she returned to the ground. The auditorium erupted in stunned silence, followed by a rising wave of applause. Her climb wasn't just a physical feat. It was a metaphor for her life. The path she had taken dangerous, unsupported, and against all odds. One of the conference's leading architects, a man who had once dismissed her, approached afterwards. I underestimated you, he admitted. You've shown all of us what real courage looks like. The event marked a turning point. Alana's climb without ropes became a powerful symbol, inspiring not only communities like hers, but professionals worldwide to rethink assumptions about ability and resilience. But the climb wasn't just about public recognition. Back home, the stakes were higher than ever. Build Back's next project was its most ambitious, yet a partnership with several cities to develop affordable, eco-friendly housing on a large scale. Funding was secured, but the pressure to succeed was immense. Failure could mean the end of everything Alana had worked for. As construction began, Alana encountered new challenges: bureaucratic red tape, unforeseen engineering hurdles, and community resistance fueled by distrust and past disappointments. There were moments when she questioned herself. Late nights in her office, surrounded by blueprints and financial reports, she remembered the laughter that once pushed her down. It could still echo, tempting her to give in. But then she thought of the families waiting for homes, the young apprentices eager to learn, and the community that had rallied behind her. And she climbed. One morning, a massive storm struck the city winds howling, rain pouring in sheets. The construction site was flooded, equipment damaged, progress threatened. While others despaired, Alana mobilized volunteers, coordinated emergency repairs, and kept the project moving. Her determination galvanized the team. Stories of her leadership during the crisis spread, reinforcing her reputation as someone who climbed not only for herself, but for those who depended on her. Years later, reflecting on the climb, Alana would say, "They laughed when I was pushed off the cliff. But the climb back, without ropes, was mine to own. And I've taken every step with purpose." Her story became a testament to the power of grit, vision, and community. And as she stood on the precipice of even greater challenges and victories, one thing was clear: Alana Rivera's climb had only just begun. Alana Rivera stood on the rooftop of the latest Build Back project, overlooking a neighborhood transformed. What was once a forgotten corner of the city was now alive with color, laughter, and promise. Solar panels glittered in the afternoon sun, community gardens thrived where cracked pavement had been, and families settled into homes designed not just to shelter, but to inspire. The climb had been long, brutal, and without ropes. But the view from here was worth every scar and every sleepless night. As she surveyed the vibrant scene below, her mind wandered back over the years, the nights she spent studying by dim light in her basement, the laughter of those who doubted her, the fire that destroyed her first pilot homes, and the countless battles fought in boardrooms and city halls. Her journey had become more than a personal triumph. It was a movement, a revolution in how communities built their futures. But more importantly, it was a story of hope. Alana had come to understand that the climb was never just about her. It was about everyone who had been pushed down, told they weren't enough, or left to fight invisible battles alone. She thought of Malik, the high school dropout she mentored, who was now a certified engineer leading his own Build Back project. She thought of the dozens of young women and men in her apprenticeship program, their eyes bright with the same determination she once had. Her climb had created new paths for others to follow, and that was her legacy. The nonprofit had grown into a nationwide network, with offices in multiple cities and partnerships spanning governments, universities, and nonprofits. Each project was a testament to the power of community-led development and sustainable design. But Alana remained grounded. Despite the accolades, the TED Talks, and the invitations to global forums, she never forgot the basement where it all began. One evening, she returned to her childhood neighborhood for a community celebration, marking the completion of a new housing complex. The streets were alive with music, food stalls, and the hum of conversations. Children ran through the gardens, their laughter ringing through the warm air. Neighbors shared stories, their faces glowing with pride. Alana moved through the crowd, greeting friends and strangers alike. She saw hope in their eyes, and it filled her with a quiet joy. At the heart of the event was a small plaque dedicated to those who had inspired the project, for those who climb without ropes, reaching higher than anyone believed possible. Alana's eyes welled with tears. She remembered the moment she was pushed down, the laughter that echoed as she fell, and the unyielding will that drove her to climb back. The climb had shaped her, not just as a leader, but as a person. She had learned that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about rising every time. The climb had also taught her about the power of connection. No one climbs alone. It takes a community, mentors, friends, family, even strangers, to support the ascent. And so, Alana dedicated herself to building more than just houses. She built bridges, between people, between ideas, between dreams and reality. Her story inspired countless others to believe in their own potential, to challenge the barriers placed before them, and to climb their own cliffs without ropes. As the night deepened and stars blinked overhead, Alana stood with her team and community members around a bonfire. The flames flickered like the spirit that had carried her through every trial. She raised a glass. "To the climb," she said, voice steady and strong. "To falling, rising, and never giving up. And to all of you, the ones who climb with me." The crowd cheered, their voices a chorus of hope and determination. In that moment, Alana knew that the climb was never really about reaching the summit. It was about the journey, the growth, and the lives touched along the way. The climb had begun with a push, a fall, and laughter meant to break her. But it ended with a rise, fearless, rope-free, and unstoppable. And her story would live on, lighting the way for generations to come.